Senator Bennet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Boren, for being here. I appreciate it. I know you grew up, you mentioned with your dad working in the Forest Service, and I know you've got exposure to the forest risk or the fire risk that we're all dealing with. And in Colorado, there's huge amounts of concern about how dangerous things are. And I have a lot of concern about what the purpose of the Trump administration's decision to move fire suppression out of the Forest Service is meant to accomplish at a moment when the last thing we need, I think, is to make it more confusing, especially we're thinking about the current wildfire season that we're facing right now. And I wasn't clear from your answer to Senator Klobuchar whether you supported that change, whether you said you had some questions of your own. I have some questions. I wonder what questions you do have about how to do it, because I'm not sure. I mean, I think maybe there's a philosophical view out there in the world that separating fire suppression from mitigation and from wildfire restoration, all that stuff is a good idea philosophically. On the ground, I'm not sure, especially in a world where people have come to work together so well with local communities, volunteer fire departments, the work that your dad did at the fire center out there. Could you talk a little bit about that in this context and how you're going to, when you become in charge of the Forest Service, the degree to which you'll pay attention to the question of whether this is a good idea or not a good idea, I guess.
Senator, thank you. I guess the answer is I'm certainly willing to look at that idea and consider it, and I can understand on my own without getting into details or being told by anyone in the administration yet, and since I'm not there, I haven't been. But I can see reasons why it's a good idea to have an agency that's focused on fire, where there's a person at the head of the agency that can be held fully responsible. And to be clear, responsibility is a good thing. Consequences are a good thing. They help shape our decisions. And so I can see where there's maybe some value and hope in that, and that might be part of what's driving it. But I have to say I just don't have the facts yet to really understand all of the reasons behind it. However, I will commit to you that managing fire so that it doesn't cause so many health problems and economic problems to our country and problems to the forest is very important to me. It will be a major focus.
And I think thank you, I appreciate that. I think it's important for the American people and the taxpayer to understand that fighting these fires costs 6 times or 9 times more than doing the restoration on the front end, doing the mitigation on the front end. These are, in that sense, they're related questions, because I hate to say it, but given the conditions, we may find ourselves paying one way or another, which is why it is so important, I think, to coordinate this work, and it is very important for the people, I think, for the people that are suppressing the fires to be able to understand and give advice to the people that are doing the work on the front end as we think about how to take care of these landscapes and protect the infrastructure and our water infrastructure in particular. Can you just respond to that or comment?
Yeah, I think that's a really insightful comment, Senator. And I think you're actually underestimating when you say 6 to 9 times, because you're talking about the tangible costs. And the health costs to America of the wildland fires that we've had is ridiculously high and overlooked. And I can tell you, I've read some of the studies on that from university professors and other organizations, and the health risk to Americans, especially young Americans, is very high. The health risk to our cattle herds is very high, and none of that's in your 6 to 9 times number. So it's a really expensive thing. It's much better to be proactive, to take care of our forests so that we don't end up with the results of firefighters. And here's another thing that isn't included in those costs: the damage to our watersheds.
Yeah, that's what.
Which is amazingly huge. And I see it firsthand in our neighborhood, because we've had some really big fires. We've had pristine wilderness rivers that haven't recovered in 20 years.
Yeah. Well, that's my major concern. Every single watershed we have is downstream of these forests. I mean, downhill and downstream. And that means that every single farm and ranch is downstream, every single community, no matter how big and no matter how small. I mean, really, the entire American West, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say the entire American West is at risk. And we can't undo lots of decisions that have been made up until this moment, I suppose. But we are going to have to find a way to work together in an urgent way to mitigate the risk that we are facing. And I completely agree that I think we've got to make important investments on the front end to try to mitigate not just the cost of fires, but the destruction that they can cause to our watersheds. Because without those watersheds, we don't have a Colorado.
I couldn't agree more, Senator.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.